Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, 25 years serial tech entrepreneur. My new book, Fail Hard, Win Big, is actually coming out at the end of June 2025. I'm excited about it. This is my story of having 30 ventures with 20 failures and 10 wins. The common element for every company I've built is I always build custom software to operationalize the company, to create a better end user experience and increase enterprise value. I'm also the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We are a nearshore custom software development company. Today, we are joined by Cydni Tetro, who is a dynamic executive out of Salt Lake City. I don't even know how to summarize. A C-level tech exec, a board member, an adjunct professor, has been CIO, been EY Entrepreneur of the Year. I'm excited to have you on the show, Cydni.
Hey, thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
Please, Cydni, spend a few minutes telling the listeners kind of the journey of your career.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, right, all of us have these like unique journeys. And when I think about mine, I really think about it as this intersection of innovation and customer. Like everything I've done is kind of woven between those. And I found early in my career that I was really good at becoming what I call an activator, someone who could turn ideas into action. I did study computer science. So I did my undergrad in computer science, and then I did my MBA, and I found myself at this place where I was really interested in like, how do you make stuff people want to use? And so my career journey has really taken me through that. I've done that on the B2B side for some of the largest brands in the world on the technical infrastructure side. That's where I got my bearings in product management. And then I've just had this opportunity to take that through all sorts of industries and all sorts of technology and innovation. Spent 6 years at Disney and Imagineering, figuring out how to make businesses out of technology innovation and spin them internal to Disney.
That had to have been a fun gig. And all of the things Disney, the innovative and creative things they have, that must have been a fun gig.
It was actually incredible. Like the opportunity to sit in that ecosystem and learn what it really means to appreciate storytelling at the depths of what they do and the impact that it has on true customer transformation and loyalty and engagement. I'm pretty sure there's nowhere else in the world you learn it at that level as the opportunity to have at Disney. I loved that phase of my career. I loved everything that I learned there.
Very cool. Please keep going on your career.
Yes, when I left Disney, I decided to jump like all into the startup side. You mentioned that a little bit, and your journey too. Where I was like, I'm going to go start this company about taking stories that I learned and bringing them to life. And we built a company around 3D printing where we could literally make you a superhero. Part of Marvel, Star Wars, the NFL, Major League Baseball, where we could basically allow you to make yourself as an action figure with your face. And we took that to market.
Who
and it was
wouldn't want that?
Exactly.
That's incredible. And that's where you won the EY Entrepreneur of the Year, correct? With that company?
So I did. It was actually a couple of years later at another company at 3D Plus Me, which was our superhero company. Kind of like you said, it was like this magical infrastructure. I really delved into like raising capital, all of those kind of things. I did another company after that. And then I built a company called Brandless that we raised a huge amount of capital to drive really big organic growth. And I was super honored to be recognized by the EY Entrepreneur of the Year program for that effort.
Amazing. I mean, you've been in product management, marketing, you've been the COO, you've been the CEO, you've covered it all.
I've tried to cover it all. It was very intentional in my career. I knew while I came technical, I wanted to always be grounded in tech, but I also knew that I wanted the skill sets for what it meant to build businesses and bring them to life. And so I intentionally took down all of those disciplines so that I could just build great things and have interesting opportunities that I couldn't predict.
Amazing. So certainly AI is the top topic out there for everything, and it's certainly changing all industries, especially the technology side. I'd love to hear your opinion on how bringing products to market is changing in this realm of generative AI, agentic AI, how things are evolving. Would love to get your take on that.
I've been pretty involved in doing a whole series of AI things, particularly over the last couple of years as it came on. And I will tell you, I think the speed of what is happening in the last quarter is unprecedented on how I really believe this is going to change products going to market. We started in those early days of, okay, how do we apply AI to business problems? Whether it was, how do you reduce unplanned downtime on manufacturing lines and add AI and sensors and create these models? Because it costs money when those lines go down. So we started doing tons of work on that, or even in sophisticated AI forecasting. So you could predict, how do you make sure the right product's in the right place, and using seasonality and trends and some of the open source models that have been created around that. And I think that that will continue to happen. We're seeing really important things. Obviously, we know the customer service ones, but I think when it comes to the development and now what's happening with the speed, like the world has fundamentally changed in software engineering. That's what I believe. And some people might have heard the term vibe coding. I mean, I grew up in product management. I know how to write user stories. I've been a scrum master. I've sat in all those seats. But now this ability to so rapidly infuse an idea that I have, create a UX, develop a front end, and bring that to market that you can create validation around is consolidated literally in 2 days, and by
It's
single
definitely
people.
been
Like,
a game changer.
it's a game changer. You watch and when I look at product management, I was actually talking to some product managers earlier today, and I asked them, I'm like, how fast is this happening for you? Because in the worlds that I'm living in right now, I think within the next quarter, product management will be fundamentally changed. And if you have not embraced this ability where you are literally using AI to figure out how to validate and build, you will get behind. There's just no way around it. Speed of bringing things, everyone is now 100 times faster in depth. I wanted to build a website a couple nights ago for a company that I was launching, because I do that sometimes randomly. I'm sure you do too. And I was
I
writing
have 30
thousands
of
of
them.
lines.
So yes, I understand. You can't sleep. You wake up in the middle of the night with an idea and you're building a website. I'm with you.
Exactly. So all of a sudden you're building this website and I'm like, okay, I'm writing thousands of lines of code that I'm editing on every like 10 minutes. And you think about what that means for how you take an idea and bring it to market, and now the skills that we need, and then how you create entire new working infrastructure and companies for that. I mean, we all hired huge data science teams and we had them build dashboards and we had them do data integration. Well, now we're just going to talk to data. So of course we have to have good structured data, but what we've had people doing and the speed of which they can do it, we're going to completely reorganize every software team over the course of the next 12 months. And
Uh,
that's going to change innovation.
I agree. So vibe coding, great for quickly getting something up, being innovative, creating quick prototypes, but not really scalable. You have to do, once you have the idea, you kind of still have to start over. So there's kind of mixed reviews on vibe coding. What's your take?
Right. First of all, I think people are always skeptical about all of the new things that come to market and then we like figure them out. I fundamentally believe that, architecture and understanding how you build and scale things is a very, very fundamental component of bringing things to market. How do you put millions of users on a platform? How do you make that secure? Like, these are really complex problems. But I think, having someone who's built like thousands of technology products, there's this place where you're also trying to get to market fast and you're trying to validate what you build, that what you build someone buys. And we've always done that by trying to create visuals. We've always done that by saying, wait, can you feel and touch this thing? Because I'm trying to take your money and make sure that it happens. And early stage validation is also imperfect code. So where I think it really evolves to is this ability to bring things to life in a rapid manner, get them in front of people, have them test them. And then it also allows you to prioritize much more quickly. I believe we will quickly get to a point where the things generated from vibe coding will have the ability to then go into other models that will be scalable. And we will see less of the concern around we're rebuilding the entire thing. I mean, that was the same concern when we started with things like Figma. Like, oh, that's never going to integrate into the code. And that's just not true.
True.
Like, we should build those interactions in that, and we should take them into the pipelines.
So what has been your experience with integrating AI into engineering teams for their productivity?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to say it's 50-50 split. Some people completely embrace and some people don't. My belief is the people who don't embrace will get outpaced by those who do in AI, and it will put them at risk. I was actually talking to a friend of mine and we were talking about junior and senior devs. And he said, you used to hire the junior and senior devs, and the junior devs need the senior devs in order to kind of get up to speed. But your AI is reducing the skills gap in fundamental ways. And he said, if I take my senior engineers right now who have not embraced AI and my junior engineers who have embraced AI, my junior engineers are surpassing the speed of developing the right types of things faster than my senior engineers. And they are more expensive and they're going to be at risk. Now, those senior engineers that accept it, those guys are brilliant. I have a couple really good, brilliant dev friends. And they're like, I'm 100 times faster. And I'm like, if you're 100 times faster, thank you. Because then I know when you're on my team, we're crushing it. And so I think everyone just has to live. I still think it's complex, right? People think about things like it's cheating or I'm going to be better than what it is. You've got all of these objections coming at it. I just fundamentally think you have to figure out how to embrace it. You have to figure out how to understand what it is and lean into it and create the right ways that allow you to build scalable, secure software that works for your business using AI.
For those of us in tech, I think for the most part, the smart people in tech have embraced that if you don't learn how to use AI for everything, you're going to become very inefficient and outdated. And the people that do embrace AI to make them more productive are the ones that will succeed moving forward, period. I mean, and I don't care if content writing or how to better structure emails or coding or putting a website together very quickly. I mean, we're at the point where, it's not cheating using it. Now, you got to be smart about it.
Totally.
But I know I use AI every day, even, like, hey, this marketing strategy is not working. This is what we've tried. And I mean, it's kind of like a companion just to go back and forth. There's no choice now. You have to embrace it or you're left behind, period. Agree or disagree?
100% agree. Like it is now just woven in the fabric of my day, right? I'm like, if I can be that much better. And I think one of the most important things is that AI is, you still have to be creative and a great problem solver. Like that's the thing, like, just like you said, right? You're giving it this like dialogue of the things you're trying to solve and the context of that and the brilliance of you woven into it. And you have to embrace that, right? Like let it do the
It's only
commoditized
as good as the prompts and instructions you give it, is what it comes down to.
That's right.
So Cindy, let's talk about women in tech. You know how many ugly men are on my show that look like me? I've only been able to have a handful of women. And, tech is a very male dominated field. You've had great success. And I know you actually even have a nonprofit that you founded to promote more women in tech. Love to get your take and what you've done with your nonprofit and how we get more women to get past that barrier or intimidation of it being a male dominated field.
Yeah. I mean, all those things that you just said are true, right? Of where we stand in the industry. When I came out of computer science, there were 3 women in my graduating class. And, I knew I was entering the field like this, but then early in my career, I just saw this opportunity to say, what I know is that as we solve really hard problems and really innovative problems, we need all of this great thinking around the table to help us solve those things. And I saw this opportunity to say, let's go create a nonprofit that's focused on economic impact of women in tech and how we increase the number of women at every stage of the talent pipeline from high school to the boardroom. And so we created this organization that's focused on networking and opportunity and mentoring and visibility for women. And it's actually been really incredible. And it is moving the needle. Like we're seeing percentage increases over time. One of the things I think that is true whenever you're trying to solve big problems like that is there's different challenges at every stage. There's different reasons like high school girls don't choose STEM, but we need a bigger funnel at the beginning so that we can get more executives. There's only 5% of technology executive positions held by women. If I were to say like, what's a metric I care most about is exactly. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this entire pipeline is because ultimately we have to change that top number because the top number is where you get even more bigger generational wealth impact for women and their families. And to get there, you have to help solve all the stages. So we have all these programs, which has been incredible. We've had like 40,000 high school girls go through our SheTech program, which runs annually, about 3,500 girls every year. And I was actually just with them earlier today. And so I had 55 interns that are doing the summer internship program. And I was chatting with them. And what's cool about that is I know that 90% of those girls will now go into STEM degrees because they found someone who looks like them. They saw and identified with some opportunity because 90% of girls tell us the reason they don't go into STEM is they don't know women in tech and they have no role models. They don't see anyone that looks like them. So they don't believe they can do it. And so when you change that and you show them that, it changes. So now we're seeing more girls enter into technology roles, but we're still seeing breakage as you climb the corporate ladder. And a lot of that has to do with all of the work we collectively have to do to make sure that we have great inclusive environments, that we have them set up so that everyone can succeed and perform well, and everyone values the talent around the table. But I just fundamentally don't believe we can solve the world's biggest problems, particularly the ones that we will now face with AI in the mix, without the collective men and women around the table that bring those perspectives to really lean in and solve together. And we still have lots of work to do, lots of barriers to break, lots of glass ceilings to break, lots of work to do inside of the corporate world to make sure that everyone's valued and succeed and can stay at the table. Obviously, it's a mission of mine. But I have seen the impact that it makes when communities lean in together and the lives it changes, the communities it changes, and the trajectories that are changing for future generations.
That's amazing, the initiative you take and how many young women and women that you've touched through your program to help them get by those barriers of women in tech. That's amazing.
It's like if you think about like legacies that you leave and you work in all these companies and have these, but ultimately, no matter where you work, whether it's on teams or in programs like this, you just hope that you impacted one life for the better, that ultimately someone's opportunities and access to things they might not have had increases because of the work that you do. And that happens for us at every stage, like women who never imagined themselves getting into a boardroom, finding ways to see those pathways because of an ecosystem and a network that supports them. Like that's powerful. I think that's what we all hope for in the work that we do.
I am with you. I agree. Now, so Cindy, you've made a career of being an expert at building products and making a company out of it. That's a pretty amazing skill. When whether it's young women to get in tech or entrepreneurs, what type of advice for those who want to follow that path do you normally give?
That's a great question. So I've like one core skill set that I value a lot that I think allows you to break barriers in lots of ecosystems. And I tend to call it creative problem solving. So this ability to see opportunities and then be willing to do whatever it takes to solve the problem in front of you. Because there's this, building companies or taking an idea and bringing it to life, it's hard. Like there's not one thing easy about it. Like to be able to shape fog and to come up, I often say when I'm running companies that like there's a crisis every day. You have to be so good at being able to say, I am willing in a positive way with limited data, but an understanding about what it would mean to go in this path to actually take action, not be paralyzed by fear, not stop because you don't know something, to be able to navigate what barriers come in front of you. You have to be so good at that ability to be an activator with creative problem solving. And if you do that, you can really make anything you can imagine possible.
I am a huge believer that your net worth is directly tied to your ability to solve more problems than everyone else. I actually, and this was probably 15 years ago, and I had a buddy who was also an entrepreneur. I had a portfolio of companies, and he was like, can I just come hang out at your office for a week and learn more about what you do? And there was literally one time where there was a line of people out my door, each with all these problems and challenges. And he would, at the end of the day, he's like, how the hell do you do that? All you're doing is solving challenges all day. He's like, I just spent a week with you. And I didn't even realize that, that was one of my core abilities. It just kind of came natural. And I am a huge believer for those who avoid challenges or, it burns them out to be constantly solving challenges. I think you're limiting yourself in your career and your worth in the market.
That's right. Exactly. And I think I love that story, right? Because it's like in your DNA, right? But it's also something that you have leaned in to develop. This idea that, throw me all the problems. You figure out how to manage, not based on emotion, based on data and insights. And then you have to have this realization that says, guess what? I actually know when I solve this problem, it doesn't probably look like the end result that someone imagined. Like you have to be okay that what you thought was the perfect launch moment or the perfect go-to-market or the perfect product looks different because of some input. And those are the types of things that paralyze people. Like, hey, wait, how can I go to market if all of these things were true? Or if the complete path got like totally disrupted and rerouted when I was in the middle of something. But to do all of to be a creative problem solver, to tackle every problem, it's a journey. It's an up and down. And the end result, as long as the outcome is what you need, the exactly what it looks like has to be flexible to change. It's really hard for a lot of people.
I know a wake up moment for me was I had a really good exit a week before my 30th birthday. I worked hard. I had a really great exit and I was completely divested from all companies and my kids were young and we went on an 8-month vacation, almost a vacation without a plan. And a month and a half in, I couldn't take another pool or pina colada. My wife was like, honey, I love you, but you need to be solving challenges. You can't not have problems to solve. And it was kind of my wake up moment. And actually, I loved it because I realized I could never retire. For my book, I was doing a lot of research on this. There's not a lot of people who are retired and truly happy with retirement because they all feel like they've lost that stimulation and that drive and what keeps them going. And that was a great wake up moment for me. Now, I probably jumped back in a little too quick and a little too aggressive after that stint and took some losses from that. So I completely blame my wife. But that was my wake up moment that, wow, like that's how my brain works. And when that was taken away from me, I wasn't the same person. Did you have kind of an aha moment of your abilities and what drives you to do what you do?
So I remember this one particular moment when we were building the 3D printing company, and I had just signed a massive deal with a major retailer, and we were launching for holiday. So this is like the end of September, and it had taken us 6 months to get this deal closed, sign on the dotted line. And in order to do this install that was across the country, I needed a really big partner because there was some infrastructure involved in doing the installation in the stores. And they called me on a Friday night at 5 o'clock. And they said, "Hey, Sid, by the way, we're pulling out. We're not going to be able to hit the timeline." And we've been working on this for months. And this had also come at a culmination when I had also been raising capital in order to do this launch. So there was about 1,000 things kind of blowing up all in the exact same moment, from one of my partners in the business who had exited, who was causing problems, to trying to raise capital to do this launch, to a vendor pulling out, all within weeks of us really supposed to launch. And I remember it was at this time where I was also feeling things like, oh, can I even look at my email before I go to work? Because there were so many things that were blowing up on me. That Monday after I got the call that they were pulling out, I walked into the room with the team and I said, I don't know if this is even possible. I don't know if this entire thing is going down in flames like next week, but I'm going to ask us to come to the table with any idea that we possibly have that can help us hit our timeline and do whatever it's possible. And at the end of the day, none of it might work. At the end of the day, everything we imagine might work, not work, but will everyone play that game? And we came up with this list of like 33 things on the table. And for me, it was this really defining moment, like you said, of it might blow up. It might not actually, we might not be able to launch. I might walk away from this entire thing and not hit anything that we thought we were going to, but I'm not going to give up. And I'm going to just come to the table with every possible thing that we have and see where that takes us. And I also remember the team being willing to do that. And for me, that was another defining moment of, if as a leader, you're willing to set that tone, other people will follow. And so we brainstormed. End of the story is, 2 weeks. So we missed our install date by 1 day, and it took 150 friends and family members to get that launch out the door. And it didn't look anything like we imagined it was going to the day before. And we're all in there like that final weekend, because it required these face scanner assemblies and the software component. And we had to have physical like action heroes that were like on the sides of it. I mean, we have like products from like the Marvel and the Star Wars line that are going to market in these stores. It's like not a small deal. And I remember like literally sleeping on the floor of the retailer like the next week as we're doing the installs, just thinking back on this moment where it didn't look exactly like I imagined. I didn't imagine I would be sitting there. I didn't even imagine that this would be exactly what the display looked like from metal. Anyway, we had all this stuff milled, and just an incredible feat. And for me, that became this defining thing of me saying, like, you're going to go for it, Sid, no matter what, every time, and do your very best all of the way through, because there's usually a pathway through. And even when it fails, it's going to be okay.
And that's sounds like everything was piling up against you. And most people probably couldn't have led themselves out of that situation. And so that's a great story. I love it.
I actually remember someone asking me, like, Sid, wouldn't it be just easier to give up in this moment? Right? Like, isn't the easier solution to walk away? And to be fair, it is easier. Like, I mean, it has its own complexities, but I think that's one of those things you have to figure out who you are. Like, if you're willing to, even if it doesn't end like you want, play it all of the way through and step into all of it.
I have never had a business go exactly as planned. Everything has always pivoted. And there are times where it makes sense to shut down a business. And to me, that doesn't mean failing. And that was hard for me to learn, because I've had a lot of companies and I always took great pride. And a lot of times it's the right business sense to shut a company down or not continue. The key for me was, and you're allowed to be emotional, you're allowed to be upset. I give you maybe a day max, but then you gotta shake it off, go for a workout, go for a hike, whatever you gotta do, shake it off and come fresh the next day.
Agreed. Agreed.
So,
There's never bat 1,000. You just can't.
and in my one of the quotes in my book is I'm batting 333 on my ventures. If I was a baseball player, that would get me in the Hall of Fame, 333. So I'll take it. You have raised a significant amount of capital for your ventures. I have done a lot of money raising as well. Everybody, I think when I see entrepreneurs or business leaders who haven't raised money, they all think it sounds glamorous and great. And there's a lot of trade-offs to go there, but I would love to hear. And so for one of your ventures, you raised over $100 million. How did you do that?
A lot of hard work, to be clear. I mean, raising capital is tough. And to be honest, raising capital as a female entrepreneur is also really hard. Like my shot at raising capital is less than 2%. I remember my very first venture, I had a mentor and he was like, Sid, just, no, you might go to 100 meetings to get 2 people to invest in you. And I was like, okay, good. I get math. I'm really good at that. I get that game. But when you dive into it and you do 100 meetings and 98 people reject you for whatever it is, their thesis, they didn't like the decision you made, you don't align with something, it's a very deep and hard process. Like
Yes,
for
it is.
you personally, there's almost nothing more hard in business than the constant rejection that is guaranteed to happen in fundraising. And what I've learned over time is A, you have to be okay with that. B, you have to be fearless. You have to go for the ask. You have to know what it is. You have to be passionate and bold about what you believe in. And you have to build networks of people who believe in you and networks of
Yes.
people who see who you are as an entrepreneur and are willing to bet on you in order to build something.
It's very well said. Man, you said you had like a 2 or 3% response rate. That's probably a hell of a lot better than mine. But I agree. Fundraising, you got to be prepared to answer every question before they can even ask it. You better have your ducks in a row. And unfortunately, throughout my ventures and my career, and now that I'm an old guy, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who cheated, who lied, who weren't honest and raised the money that they were going for. And every single time it's fell back on them. And I'll tell you, in the US, one thing you don't do is raise money under false pretenses, because that's
right.
criminal. That's jail time. And it is a brutal world of dealing with rejection and keep going. And so, man, Cydni, I could talk to you for hours. This is fun. We do need to wrap up the show. You are such a dynamic, successful executive. It's fun talking with you. Any final shout outs or advice you have for tech leaders, for entrepreneurs, for executives? What advice would you like to leave everybody with?
I think the thing that I would say is, the path is inevitably going to be bumpy, but who you are and how you show up every day is ultimately the thing that defines who you are and how people support you. And when I think about being an entrepreneur and trying to take things to market, win, lose, or draw, at the end of the day, it is about how you choose to play the game. And I think that in leadership, and especially as we go into a world where AI takes so many of the commodity and process things, the better we can be as empathetic leaders, the better world we're going to create around us, because we have to recognize talented people, give them opportunity, and make great things happen by building stellar teams, but most importantly, being stellar leaders that leave the world better.
Well said, Cindy. And I know you have some exciting ventures coming up that we can't talk about yet, but you're absolutely one to watch. Thank you so much for being on, Cindy. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. Stay bold and keep building.
That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.